Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jeremy Leffler from the Policy Office at the National Science Foundation, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. And I'm now pleased to turn it over to our presenters for this webinar, which will cover NSF's implementation of the common forms for the biographical sketch and current and pending other support.
Thanks so much, Jeremy, and welcome everyone. We are very excited to be talking about NSF's implementation of the NSTC approved common forms for the biographical sketch and current and pending other support this afternoon, providing you a bit of context, background, some of the changes that were made from the last version that was published in the Federal Register, and then we will be ending with, of course, information from our colleague from NIH. So next slide. So my name is Jean Feldman. I am head of the Policy Office and the Division of Institution and Award Support. We are part of NSF's Office of Budget Finance and Award Management, and I am severely beaten in terms of an acronym by Mr. Trawick, who will introduce himself right now.
Hi, glad to be here. Thank you, Jean. I'm Bart Trawick. I'm the head of the Customer Services section at NIH, the National Library of Medicine, the National Center for Biotechnology Information. And I run Science UV, and we're going to hear about it after Jean.
Thanks so much, Bart, and we're delighted to have him with us today. Next slide, please. So a little bit of level setting for folks. Many of you have heard this part, so I will go through it very quickly. There was an activity under the National Science and Technology Council, the Research Security Subcommittee, when it implemented National Security Presidential Memorandum 33 and the implementation guidance associated with NSPM 33 to have a set of harmonized disclosure requirements to relieve the administrative burden for senior key personnel on proposals submitted to federal research funding agencies. And NSF, myself and my colleague Michelle Bowles from the National Institutes of Health co-chaired this disclosure policy working group. Again, the common forms very much were an attempt to harmonize content requirements for both of these forms. I can tell you that there have been similar activities going on since as early as the 1990s. So we're very, very excited about what kind of opportunities and potential this has. The comments that we received them in two ways. We received them from both the federal research funding agencies themselves, as well as published the drafts in the Federal Register for consideration by the research community to get input. And we're delighted with all of the input that we received because we do believe that it improved the quality of what ultimately was developed. Both of these forms, the National Defense Authorization Act 2021, Section 223 requires all senior key personnel to certify that the information that they are providing is accurate, current, and complete. And we've made sure that both of these forms include that certification. More recently, in CHIPS and Science Act of 2022, there was a requirement that senior key persons certify that they are not a party to a malign foreign talent recruitment program. You will see this come up a few times in this presentation, but we have added certifications in that regard to both of these common forms. The PAP guide, the NSF Proposal on Award Policies and Procedures Guide, does contain NSF's implementation of both common forms. And so we're going to walk you through a bit during this presentation of what that might look like. Next slide, please. So again, we published both of these common forms in draft in the Federal Register to obtain community feedback. And so I have put in a couple of slides what I consider the major changes to be from what actually we ended up finalizing with the National Science and Technology Council. And I thought this might be very helpful. I think it's also demonstrative of the fact that we took your feedback very, very seriously. And really, in reality, the comments were very nicely bucketed in a number of areas. The first being definitions. There was definitely a desire from the community. We use terms like institutional appointment, professional appointment, academic position, academic appointment. And folks were like, we don't know what those mean. Those aren't defined anywhere. And so we took the existing set of definitions that were contained in the NSPM 33 implementation guidance, and we have supplemented those definitions. And when you actually look on the forms themselves, we've hyperlinked to what those definitions are to provide what we believe is clarity in that regard. There was a lot of feedback regarding certification language. And the language from themselves is we have standard language we've included on each of the common forms, the biographical sketch, as well as current and pending other support. However, in the actual instructions, we identify that it's incumbent upon each federal research funding agency to issue and provide detailed instructions on the certification requirements that apply specifically to that agency. Why you say if it's a common form, some agencies have statutory requirements that must be fulfilled in the way of certifications that others do not. We also, in the certification space, were asked to provide some guidance for how long does this certification last for. And so the forms have been modified to specify that the signature must be in the same calendar year of the proposal being submitted. Again, I've already mentioned the certification on the Malign Foreign Talent Recruitment Program. Again, both of these, the certification is contained on both the biographical sketch and current and pending support, because depending on the relationship you have with that Malign Foreign Talent Recruitment Program, it could be in the form of something that would appear on the biographical sketch or in current and pending other support. We were also asked to provide parameters regarding professional appointments. And because we understand that there could be a lot of those, and we wanted to make sure that we relieved where possible the administrative burden associated with this particular data element. And so the language now says, with regard to professional appointments, senior key persons must only identify all current domestic and foreign professional appointments outside of their primary organization. Many of you have seen that language before because it is existing language that is currently in use by the National Science Foundation. We also received requests for guidance on the listing of products. How do you want them listed? In what order should we list them? How might we best accomplish this? And we were like, whoa, we need to make it very clear to senior key persons that the purpose of the biographical sketch is to ensure that the individual or team has the necessary qualifications to carry out the research as proposed. And we want to make it very clear that it should be organized in the way that the senior key person believes best demonstrates their ability to carry out the proposed research. The agencies can't do that for you. That is something that you are going to have to do yourself. In the instructions on the biographical sketch common form, we've also indicated that federal agencies may provide guidance on a limitation of number of products that they may want to see. And it could vary. I mean, obviously for many very, very experienced researchers. That could go on for pages and pages. And so this gave the ability, this note to federal agencies to limit that number if they chose to do so, and they would have to do that in their implementation document. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to talk a bit about the current and pending other support. And we believe this, of anything, this definitely demonstrates our desire to listen to the research community with respect to what constitutes an in-kind contribution and when do we want it reported. And so the language was modified significantly, and we state that in this section, please disclose all in-kind contributions with an estimated dollar value of $5,000 or more, and that require a commitment of the individual's time. An in-kind contribution is a non-cash contribution provided by an external entity that directly supports the individual's research and development efforts. An in-kind contribution may include, but is not limited to, and then it lists a series of items. In-kind contributions with an estimated value of less than $5,000 need not be reported. We were asked then to say, okay, give us the complete listing of in-kind contributions. It simply is not possible. We are different federal agencies with different missions, and the kinds of things that might be reportable under something for the National Science Foundation may not be for EPA or DOD, et cetera. So I think with regard to in-kind contributions, we've made some pretty fundamental changes that we believe will be helpful in explaining what our interest area is in terms of reportable items. Another large area where we received a lot of requests for clarification had to do with the issue of consulting. And so we provide consulting must be disclosed under the proposals and active project section. So we've now told you where to report it. When any of the following scenarios apply, it will require the senior key person to perform research as part of that consulting activity. The consulting activity doesn't involve performing research, but is related to their research portfolio in some way, may have the ability to impact funding, alter time or effort commitments, or otherwise impact scientific integrity. So those are separate ways that consulting that's not specifically research may need to be reportable. And then finally, and the consulting entity has provided a contract that requires the senior key person to conceal, withhold confidential financial or other ties between the senior key person and the entity, irrespective of the duration of the engagement. Now, I will tell you that we are receiving questions on some of these components of consulting. I will also note that we actually borrowed in policy land, it really is okay to steal. We stole the language from the Federal Demonstration Partnership because we believed that one of their activities in the foreign influence space really did provide a much more rich and detailed set of examples on when consulting should actually be reported. Next slide, please. So again, those were not all of the changes we made, but again, they were bucketed into key areas, and we really were able to address most, if not all, of those. The changes that could not be addressed, there was very much a desire, and we received this comment over and over again, we'd like one implementation, and we want that one implementation to be the same for each and every agency. That's not simply possible, given the variance in agency statutory regulatory requirements. Our missions differ. And so that simply was not something that we could achieve with this version of these common forms. Removal or elimination of disclosure tables. We currently have out on the website, I'm going to show you a picture of it in a moment, NSTC approved pre-award and post-award disclosure tables, disclosures related to the biographical sketch and current and pending other support. It then lists a series of activities and then where and when in the process you should provide them, either with the proposal and the biographical sketch, current and pending support, or facilities, equipment, or other resources, or post-award project reports, post-award information, term and condition, or disclosure not required. This was not heavily requested, but there were a few requests for this. And we believe that the desire to have this information available outweighs the few that felt like this information should not be included in a table form. Questions regarding use of the data is not something that we can answer. Again, in the common form, each common form itself, it tells you the purpose of each of the forms, but we certainly could not address the future use of what that data might be used for. Future changes to the common forms. There was a strong desire that there never be future changes to the common forms and that we keep these around for a while. Well, with anything, I can guarantee you each year, we're one of the first agencies out there with this implementation. We will get a whole lot of lessons learned, as will other agencies. And we will have made the commitment to go through a formal process when we do make any of those major changes to ensure that the community has an opportunity to opine. Next slide, please. This is the page that I referred to before. It is the NSF is the steward, if you will, or owner of the common forms on behalf of all of the federal research funding agencies. This is where we post all the versions of the forms, as well as new definitions that came out. I mentioned that we had modified the initial set of definitions that came out in the NSPM 33 implementation guidance. You can find a direct link. We absolutely plan on keeping this page up to date, adding additional information as it becomes available. And so stay tuned and pay attention to this particular page, as you'll find a lot of information there. Next slide, please. Let me talk just very briefly about the PAP guide implementation of the biographical sketch. Most of this is not a change because it's exactly what we had before. A biographical sketch is required for each individual identified as a senior key person. I note that NSF's terminology was senior personnel, and for consistency with the common form, we have changed that terminology. It is still used to assess how well qualified the individual team or organization is to conduct the proposed activity. You were required in the draft version of this form, this has not changed, to disclose really foreign government sponsored talent recruitment programs and others that are sponsored by foreign governments. We are distinguishing this between a malign foreign talent recruitment program, which is defined in CHIPS and Science, as well as in the definition section for NSPM 33 implementation guidance. And if that's not enough, we've also defined it in the NSF PAP guide in 24-1. As I've mentioned now twice, an individual will have to certify that they are not a party to a malign foreign talent recruitment program. Effective at NSF for any proposal submitted or due on or after May 20, 2024, You are ineligible to serve as a senior key person if you are a party to a malign foreign talent recruitment program. As with last year, we are continuing our requirement that you use Science CV to prepare and upload your biographical sketch. Next slide, please. Both of our forms, the biographical sketch is truly fully compliant. We took this very, very seriously, and we are fully compliant with the data elements that are specified in both forms. One of the big changes we have made, however, to the biographical sketch is that it had a 3-page limitation. We have removed the 3-page limitation from the biographical sketch. We want to be absolutely consistent with all of the required data elements and sets of data, if you will, that are contained in the biographical sketch. And to do that, we had to take out an NSF specific part of the biographical sketch that was not of interest to other agencies, and it's called synergistic activities. So what have we done with synergistic activities? Have we eliminated it? No. A synergistic activity is still a required component of what each senior key person must submit to NSF. So there is a section in research.gov where senior key personnel documents are housed. This will be a 1-page upload in that section for each individual. So it will be checking to make sure that every senior key person has a synergistic activity document and that it is no more than 1 page. The actual instructions go on to say that it can be a list of up to 5 distinct examples that demonstrate the broader impact of the individual's professional and scholarly activities that focus on the integration and transfer of knowledge as well as its creation. So again, a separate 1-page PDF upload for each senior key person that has up to 5 distinct examples. Next slide, please. So here are the whopping kind of clarifications NSF has made in our implementation instructions. And both of these, by the way, are not deviations or exceptions. Both are permitted by the form. So one of the instructions on both forms is enter the persistent identifier PID for the senior key person. NSF is opting to use ORCID for that purpose. It is an optional data field, but instead of calling out PID, we call out ORCID. Products. In the biographical sketch, it is a list of products that demonstrate the individual's ability to carry out the proposed project. Now, the instructions themselves say, note, federal research funding agencies may elect to specify other types of products that may be relevant to the mission of the agency, as well as to specify any limitations on the number of products that may be included in this section of the biographical sketch common form. NSF, as has been its prior position on this matter, actually for decades, has invoked that limitation. Provide a list of up to 5 products most closely related to the proposed project and up to 5 other significant products. We believe this provides equity between early career faculty and those that have been in the field longer, as well as relieve administrative burden on all senior key persons. Next slide, please. So I'm going to finish with current and pending other support. Obviously, these also are required for each individual identified as a senior key person. Like NSF's existing requirements, it specifies that this information is used to assess the capacity or any conflicts of commitment that may impact the ability of the individual to carry out the research effort as proposed. new language that's been added to the PAP guide from the common form itself states that the information also can be used to help assess any potential scientific and budgetary overlap duplication with the project being proposed. We said duplication, but this also gets to budgetary implication as well. Again, fourth time, you have to certify that you're not a party to a malign foreign talent recruitment program, and it has to be created in Science CV. With that, I now turn it over to my colleague, Bart Trawick, to actually go over Science CV.
Great. Thank you so much, Jean. That's a perfect segue because I have a slide deck ready to look at Science CV and how it supports these new forms. So start with, we're going to look at Science CV, how to get there, how to sign in, what that process is like. Jean's been talking about the new forms. The new forms are now available in Science CV. We'll take a quick look at what the differences are, how you can work with both of them currently, how to certify. Jean's been talking about the certification process. We also offer a delegation feature in Science CV so that staff can help PIs with the process of filling the forms out. The PI is the ultimate responsible party that must certify it, however. We're going to look at the timeline from where we are now up until May 20th. This is when the new forms become required for NSF applications that are due on the 20th or after that date. And we'll quickly look at ORCID and how this supports filling in information in your biographical sketch. As Jean mentioned earlier, ORCID is the solution that NSF prefers for the persistent identifiers. So Science CV is a helpful tool that's online. It supports the two forms that Jean was talking about, both the biographical sketch and financial support form in the form of the current and pending other support form. I included the URL for Science CV there with a QR code. If you want to kind of look at it and kind of follow along, that's perfectly fine as well. I like to describe Science CV. It's similar to tax prep software. We're in April. Lots of people have been filing taxes this month. And if you use one of these products like TurboTax or Free Tax USA, kind of the same thing, where you have information that you need to provide to the government. The government wants to have a PDF that's submitted into their system. That's what the IRS is asking for. Science CV operates kind of in the same way. It's a tool to help grant applicants pull information in, fill out the form, then create the form as a PDF that gets submitted as part of the grant application package at research.gov. So think of it like that, and you'll kind of understand where we're coming from. Within Science CV, it's a workspace. It's a workspace for applicants. They can have as many BioSketches as they want. We realize that some investigators might want to highlight particular competencies for a grant application. There might be something that highlights their basic science skills for a basic science type of grant application. They can create a BioSketch that highlights that competency. If they have a different grant they're applying for that's more clinical in nature, they might want to have something that shows a different facet of themselves. So within Science CV, you can have multiple copies of BioSketches that highlight different aspects of your research. And as you go through the years and you want to update them, that's fine as well. You can find an older version of your BioSketch, update it to a newer version, and you're off to the races. And we'll also look towards the end of my talk about delegates and how they can help assist the PIs in preparing this documentation. So Science CV has many different ways to log in. I'll highlight the research.gov pathway because if you're applying for a grant from the NSF, you're probably going to have a research.gov account. And that is one of the routes that we support to sign into Science CV, access the system, and fill out the information. We have a link to that login route right on our homepage, NSF, you click on that, it takes you to the research.gov sign-in where you use your research.gov credentials to authenticate, and then you're redirected back into Science CV where you can access your profile. So we're excited to talk about the new forms that have now become available. A lot of the work that Jean was describing over the past year in arriving at this common format are now today available for your use to go in and fill them out and start with that process. So let's start with the current and pending other support form. There, we support the current version of it, which is going to be accepted for proposals that have due dates on or before May 17th. We also have the new version. So within Science CV, when you're ready to create a new form, you will see options for both of these. I have a blue dot right next to the current and pending other support form for the ones that would be for right now up until May 17th. You can also have the option to create it in the new format. That's going to be for proposals submitted or due May 20th. So that's one thing you're going to see right off the bat. Both of these formats are available for you to work with. In the listing of all the documents that you have in Science CV, we also identify the different documents on that page as well. So for those that are due for proposals on May 17th, you'll see that clearly marked. The ones that are for proposals due the 20th or later, you'll see that as well. And finally, when you create the PDFs and you download them, if you have some PDFs, you're not sure, is this for the older version or the newer version? If you look at the footer, you'll see identifying right there. The older version is listed as 2023-1, and the newer version that is going to become required on May 20th is listed as the version 2024-1. So several places throughout the system, you can easily identify which version is which. All right, so what's different between the older version and the newer version? As Jean had mentioned, for the current and pending other support, it's kind of some minor changes. One thing within our form is the proposals and active project summary section is required now. You need to have at least one item in there in order to fully fill out this form. The other change that you will notice, Jean was mentioning change in the language of the certification, and you will see that this has been updated in the newer form. Here's information about the Malign Foreign Talent Recruitment Program. That's all within this new certification piece for these newer updated forms. Finally, there's also a Privacy Act and burden statement. This appears within the web interface in Science CV. It's not part of the PDF that's produced once you download the document and get it ready for submission. All right, that was easy. That was the current and pending other support form. Let's look at the biographical sketch. Again, we identify between the old form and the new form. You will see that when you're going to create a new document, you have an option to do the older form, due on or before May 17th, or fill out the newer form, due on or after May the 20th. And again, if you're looking at all the documents that you have in Science CV, we clearly mark the biographical sketches that are for the current version, due up until May the 17th, and those that are of the new format that will be accepted for proposals on or after May the 20th. And again, if you have some PDFs that are sitting on your drive and you want to see which one is which, simply look at the footer of your PDF documents. The current form will be marked as 2023-1. The newer format will be marked as 2024-1. So how do you update one of the older BioSketches into the newer format? When you go into Science CV, if you access one of the current BioSketches, the 2023- format, you will see a banner at the very top letting you know that it's no longer going to be accepted after May the 17th. At the very top of the banner, it says that it's outdated, and we realized once we put it out that this is not entirely accurate. It is currently the format to be submitted up until May the 17th. We're going to update that on the website. We really appreciate the feedback we got that was calling our attention to that. So that will be addressed. But just to reiterate, the 2023-1 is the current format that research.gov will accept up until May the 17th. Within this banner, you'll see a link. Click here to copy this into the new format. You click that link, and within 1 or 2 seconds, you get all of your information transferred from the older format into the newer format. So it's very quick, it's very easy. We will not update biographical sketches automatically. It's something that you can do right within the system when you're ready to update them. And I'll let you know why we chose that in just a minute. So when we look at the PDFs themselves, what's the difference? What is the information that's different between the older format and the newer format? And as Jean mentioned, synergistic activities is no longer a part of the new format. So when you update your older format BioSketch into the newer one, the synergistic activities will not carry over. We decided to not automatically update everyone's biographical sketches because, as Jean mentioned, synergistic activities will be accepted in a different document as part of the grant application process for NSF. So we didn't want to automatically update everyone's biographical sketch and lose that information. So when you update your older BioSketch to the newer one, you'll still have that copy of the older one with the synergistic activity information. You can copy that information out of that document and then put it into a new format to be added as part of your grant application process. So you're not going to lose the information. It'll still be there. We'll keep both copies for you. Let's look at certifying the documents and how delegates are an important part of this process and making it easier. Here is a screen that's showing the certification part of Science CV when you're in a form and the PI is ready to certify this. There's the language that's there specifying the new conditions that have to be attested to. We put a little banner at the top. We made a very slight change to the process, and that is when a PI is ready to certify this, each and every time they hit download, they're going to be presented with the dialogue that they say, yes, I attest that everything in here is correct. This is what it looks like. When they click on that download PDF, every single time, they're going to have the certification language that they attest to and certify, and then they will produce the PDF. So in the current system, if you clicked on download and there were no changes, we didn't have you go through that process. But there are cases when the staff will ask for updated information. And so this is a way to ensure that the PI goes in, they review it, they submit a new form, and you'll get a new timestamp showing that everything had been looked at. And again, they agree, the timestamp appears right here, that everything is certified according to the PI's review. We have a lot of people that use delegates, and it's very helpful. And I'm going to quickly walk you through how do you add a delegate in the system to assist with the PIs. When you're signed in, if you're the PI, you'll have your name will appear in the sign-in button in the upper right of our screens. And if you click on that, you can go to an account settings page. Within account settings, we have a delegate section. And when you're ready to add a delegate, we'll ask you for their email address. We'll send an invitation to that email for that individual to come and help manage the documents for that PI. The person that receives that email will come to Science CV and sign in with their credentials. They might have a Google account, they might have an Orchid account, but that delegate is signing in with their own personal credentials to the system. The system will then link up. You've signed in with this invitation and your credentials, and you're going to manage this PI's information. The delegate will see, they'll have the ability to fill out their own biographical sketches and documents for themselves, but they will see towards the bottom of their documents a link to the account that they are delegated to help assist with. When they click on that, they will actually go into that person's account. There will be a banner at the very top, make it very obvious that I am now working in this person's account. I'm helping them out. If they want to go back to their own account, there's a hyperlink right there, and they can go back to their own account. Similarly, when they're working in the documents themselves, when they're supporting the PI and filling it out, there's going to be a banner. Let them know you're working as a delegate for this document here. They can go back to their account at any time. So how does the certification work? The PI is the person that needs to certify this information. What happens if a delegate is working in the account? So when the delegate is working within the system, one thing that we've heard back from the community, from people that were actually performing this task, they said, we like filling it out. We want to see what does the PDF look like before we notify the PI to come certify it. So we added a new feature based on feedback so that delegates can view a draft of the PDF. They'll see exactly what it looks like. If they want to make changes, they can close that view, go back in, make any corrections, but they'll have the ability to be completely satisfied with how things are going to look before they contact the PI. Once they contact the PI will come into ScienceCV. They'll see the documents within their own account, and then they can complete the certification process. Once that happens, the PI will have the document. They can submit it as part of the grant application process, or the delegate at that point can download a copy that the PI has certified if they want the delegate to manage all of these documents and submit it. Either way, the system can support either of these workflows. All right, so let's talk about what's going to happen from this point right now until the new forms and when they are required. So we just added the new forms. They're available in ScienceCV. So we're right at this point here. We have both versions of the biographical sketch. We have both versions of the current and pending other support document. You can work in either of those. NSF currently will only accept the 23-1 versions of the current and pending other support and the biographical sketch. If you try to upload one of the 24 versions of the documents, the research.gov will throw an error for you. So that's what that is. On May the 17th, research.gov is going to update their website. That's a Friday. As part of that update, they will make the switch from the 23-1 form to the 24-1. So at that point, the new version of those documents will be available and will be accepted. ScienceCV on the following Monday is also going to make an update after that. We're going to retire the creation of the older forms, so you won't be able to make them anymore. For any current and pending other support document that you have in ScienceCV, we will automatically update it for you into the new 24-1 format. And as I explained, for the biographical sketches, there's some information in there, the synergistic activities that you might still want to use as part of your application process. So we will not automatically update that document type, but you simply click that link. We'll give you a brand new copy in the 24-1 format. That's what you'll submit on May 20th and forward. So I'm going to briefly cover ORCID and how that can help. ORCID is a very handy profile system. You can use it to sign into Science CV. It gives you that persistent identifier. The data within ORCID can be used to pre-populate your biographical sketch. The citations that are in there can also be used in Science CV. When you link an ORCID account to Science CV, we will get your persistent identifier and we'll add it to the forms. It happens automatically once you sign in from ORCID into Science CV. When you create a new document using your profile information from ORCID, it goes right into the biographical sketch form. Once it's in that form, it's static and it's up to the PI. They can do what they want. They can change anything. They can make corrections. They can add information to the BioSketch. Nothing will go back and overwrite what is in ORCID. And finally, the other feature in ORCID that's really great is it's exceptional at working with many different citation databases. So if you're a PI and you have an ORCID ID and you're publishing with this ID, ORCID is great at seeing that ID out in citation databases, pulling those works into your ORCID profile. That would happen automatically. When that does, it becomes available for you to add as one of the products in your Science CV BioSketch. And finally, I want to end by giving a big props to the NSF grant application community because they've really done a fantastic job. These numbers kind of blow me away. We go in, we're constantly monitoring the system, seeing what kind of activity is happening. We currently have about 90,000 accounts that have been linked to ERA Commons, the NIH grant system, 80,000 linked to research.gov, and over 130,000 have been linked to ORCID. And remember, you can have one account that's linked to all of these different grant application systems. But the number that really impresses me is the work that's going in with PIs that are using the system and generating documents. Over the last quarter of this calendar year, from January to March, we've had almost 100,000 BioSketches in the NSF format produced, 120,000 current and pending other support. So a lot of work that's going in. I get down to NIH. NIH doesn't currently require Science CV, and you can see the numbers drop off quite a bit, only 19,000. So way to go, NSF. You guys are really using the system well. We're excited to see that it's helping you with that. Finally, how can you be involved? I'm going to give you two things. Number one, at the bottom, we have a help link. Please write into our help desk. We appreciate the feedback you give us. The second thing, Science CV, we are going to have a table at the NSF Grants Conference in June in Philadelphia. So if you're or one of your PIs are going to be at that event, we are going to have a table set up where you can come and talk to us and let us know how Science CV is working for you, anything that we can help you with. We are going to have staffed and we'll be providing a talk at that function as well. I'm going to end with some helpful resources, links to documentation, some YouTube videos, and again, the link to the help desk. This is where we really get the feedback that we listen to and understand on how to make Science CV better. So that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Bart, and thank you, Jean. We have been answering quite a lot of questions in the Q&A. And as I promised at the beginning of this session, we certainly won't be able to get to all of them. And what we've been doing is trying to look at some commonalities in the questions that have been coming in. So in the short time that we have, there are a few that I want to make sure that we hit on. We did see some questions, Jean, I'll start with you, about malign foreign talent recruitment programs. And one of the ones that I wanted to pose is that if a senior key person had previously been a party to a malign foreign talent recruitment program, but they no longer had that affiliation, would they then become eligible for to be on a proposal to NSF?
Thank you for asking that, because it's a very good question. NSF is not retroactively applying this requirement. We know there may have been something in the past you didn't know about, what the implications were of that particular program. So what we're saying, and even when you look at the new set of terms and conditions, we apply it to any new proposal submitted on or after May 20, 2024, because of the implications of people who may have had prior activities. So again, you become ineligible for any new proposal submitted on or after May 20.
Okay, next question I want to bring up is about consultants and how some of those situations should be reflected on current and pending. So if the senior key person is a consultant from another organization, the question is, what should be provided in the award amount section of current and pending support? Is it the amount that the consultant will receive, or is it the award amount that the institution will receive from NSF?
Well,
The award
consultant is a little interesting in this regard in terms of what they should actually be providing, because it is a personal service. So technically what we ask for is the full amount, understanding though that the consultant amount is going to be a very small percentage. We've also said, for example, commensurate with this, any subawardee would provide the amount on the subaward, not the full amount of the award. So it's what amount is being given. Now, if the consultant is truly not affiliated with that institution, though, that raises an interesting question. If there is some of these get a little complicated, so I'm not sure about that piece of it. But typically speaking, what we're asking for is the amount that's going to the institution. But if there is no affiliation with that institution, that might be a different answer. I'd be happy to engage whoever asked that question in a more detailed discussion.
The next area where we saw a lot of questions was surrounding synergistic activities. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be useful to, again, talk about the requirements for synergistic activities as they used to be, since they will no longer be a component of the BioSketch, and exactly what has changed in going forward beginning May 20th.
Okay. And I'm very much happy that you asked that, because I saw, even though we were all busily typing, I saw a lot of questions on synergistic activities. So what we're doing with synergistic activities is, again, it's been pulled out, number one, for everyone to understand, it's been pulled out of the BioSketch. Bart made that clear. I think that piece of it I've made clear. What it is the instructions that are provided are that it is a one-page document, up to one page, which will be compliance checked. And you must have one for every senior key person. In addition, we have added that there can be up to 5 distinct examples. One page, 5 distinct examples. So in the prior PAP guide, we said, well, not sub-examples because, and what do I mean by sub-example? I am a reviewer for an agency, okay? I'm a reviewer for, and then they list 10 agencies. We don't need all 10. We get the concept that you're a reviewer. But right now, we give you up to 5 distinct examples and a page, and it is your choice how to use that page.
Hey, Bart, I know you talked about this, but we saw a number of questions about it in the Q&A, and that is about converting current biographical sketches and current and pending other support documents into the new format. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about that and let folks know how they should be doing that.
Sure. In the biographical sketch, if you're in the older format, it's really easy. We have that banner at the top. You simply click on the link and we copy it right into a new form for you. There's other ways that you can do it as well. In ScienceCV, when you say, I want to create a new document, you tell us what kind of document are you creating. And one of the options is to say, copy the info from one of my older ones. So there's a couple different ways that you're able to pull information from an existing document and put it into a new one that you're creating.
Great. I know that we had so many questions. We have over 100 questions, and I think what's really going to be helpful for us is seeing those questions to know how we can go forward and with some of the documents that we have, with frequently asked questions that we update as we go forward, and we will be putting out documents, in the near future as we receive more questions on this. So thank you for that. I do want to thank you for participating today, and I have a couple of reminders for folks. I just want to reiterate that we do have the Spring 2024 NSF Grants Conference coming up June 3rd to 5th in Philadelphia. There is still registration available, but the deadline for registering is fast approaching. So if you're looking to come and learn a lot more about NSF, we encourage you to register as soon as possible. A lot of the folks that you see here today are going to be there at that conference. So again, I want to thank you for participating today. We're going to add a survey link in the chat. Your feedback is very important to us, and we appreciate and read all of your responses, and they will help us shape future webinars. We will have a recording of this session. You'll find it on the Policy Outreach website and on our YouTube channel. So I want to thank you all very much for participating, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.